Have you ever gone through a difficult moment in your life and you were wondering, how am I going to get through this? Or maybe you're going through it and you're like, there's no way that I'm not going to succeed through this? Well, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And we're going to go into that mindset. Christopher Dedian here. So first of all, why did I pick up this book? I've been actually following David Goggins' work for a couple of years now. The first time I heard him was during an interview done by Tom Bilyeu in The Impact Theory, and right away I just got hooked with this guy. The way that he presents his information, the way that he's direct, his really crazy story that we're going to jump into very soon. So it was a really enthralling read, and he actually tells that he considers himself one of the toughest SOBs on this planet. And after reading this book, I feel like I can't argue that. The first best idea of the book is David Goggins' story. Now obviously I have to frame this whole video with his story because it's extremely important to understand the rest of how he became what he became as a very, mentally strong human being. Now, the story that I'm going to give over here is really just a snippet of his life story. So I'm going to invite you guys afterwards to either go watch some of his videos or buy the book and just get into the story because it's thoroughly interesting. So let me start off by saying that in his family life, he wasn't necessarily supported emotionally or in any other endeavors that he had. In fact, his father used to beat him up quite consistently at his young age. And he wasn't the only one. His mother and the brother used to get beaten up as well. Now, at a certain point, the mother picked up her courage and finally was able to leave the father. And David Goggins went and lived with his mother down south, so in the south of the United States. Now, once he went there was other problems that arose. Obviously, during those times, in those states, there was a lot of repression with people that are from different races. So he was getting a lot of racism when he was young. As well, in the school, he was having some difficulties because he has learning disabilities and he wasn't thriving in any environment. And unfortunately, his mother couldn't necessarily support him because she was working like many jobs to put food on the table. So he was really left on his own to kind of grow up and figure it out. Now, as that progressed, as a young man, obviously he got some bad tendencies. He actually started gaining a lot of weight. He was flirting around 300 pounds. At this point, he was married. He was doing a job that he thoroughly did not love. He wasn't passionate about. And he started seeing that, okay, wait a minute, there's something going wrong. And he had an epiphany moment. And that epiphany moment was, he was sitting on his couch eating crazy amounts of food, and then this commercial came about the US Army, and he was seeing these SEALs do the US training to get into it. So he got really motivated and excited that, oh, wait a minute, this is something that's, pushing me towards something positive. Let me go into that. So he puts on his shoes, and he decides to go out for a run. He gets to the corner of the block and he realizes that, okay, he can't do this. He has to restructure his idea, gets to training, gets to doing some long distance races to really get into great shape to become a SEAL. Now finally, he gets accepted into the SEAL school and he has to go through Hell Week, which is a week of training which is extremely intense. He had to do it unfortunately 3 times because the 2 first times he got injured. Finally, the 3rd time, he completely completed it. Now, this whole point in this whole transition of his life, he became mentally a lot stronger, and he got some tricks and methodologies to really make him become a solid human being, not only physically but mentally, most important. And I just drew a little picture of who he was before and what he became as a SEAL and many other things. He went up and he did some crazy long distance marathon running. He broke the record of the most pull-ups in 24 hours. He did a bunch of crazy things as well on that end. And when I'm saying crazy, I mean extremely impressive of that transition. So it's such a huge dichotomy of where he started and where he finished off. And this book, he gives a lot of tricks and methodologies of how he got that. And that's what we're going to go into with the rest of the best ideas that I got out of this book. The second best idea of the book is callousing your mind. Now, this was my favorite idea that I picked up out of this book. And essentially what he explains over here, just like when you work up or when you do a lot of pull-ups like he was doing for that competition, you get a lot of calluses on your hands. And I don't know if you guys see, I do actually a lot of CrossFit and have calluses in my hands, like quite significantly from pull-ups, muscle-ups, chest to bars, and Olympic lifts like snatches and all that stuff. Now, when you have the calluses, it takes time to get it, but afterwards, it becomes a lot stronger, so you don't rip as much your hands. Now, what he explains over here is the mind does the same thing. As you succeed, you put challenges and you go through those difficult challenges, you become a lot more stronger mentally to pursue anything. Now, when he realized that is when he stopped looking at himself as a victim. He had to go through all these challenging things throughout his whole life, like we mentioned before, from his father beating himself, from becoming extremely overweight to getting into SEALs and all these trainings. All of those difficult moments were in fact training him to get calluses on his mind. And I love this concept over here. And he actually brings one element of science, which I thoroughly love. He explains that, I'm actually gonna pull it up and read it to you. Once you're at a point that you're doing something and you're completely on the mindset of, listen, I don't care how much it's gonna hurt, I'm gonna go for it. And then your mind understands that you're not gonna give up. What happens is it engages your sympathetic nervous system and it switches on your hormonal flow. Now what that means is it actually turns on your fight or flight situation. So when you're in that state and you're giving your body and your mind no option but to continue, it actually activates certain parts of your body that is usually dormant, like this sympathetic nervous system that activates the flow of hormones. Now, for that to happen, you have to go through the first barrier of you want to quit, or it seems difficult, or you feel uncomfortable. And once you develop that awareness, that callousing of your mind, you're able to understand that it's just a stepping stone to really get into other levels of physicality or just mental strength. So I thoroughly enjoyed how he presented that, and it's a great way to kind of look at it, like I said, callousing your mind. The third best idea of the book is taking souls. Now this was an interesting concept, and the way that he coins it is actually very smart. So taking souls is very simple. It's when you're in a situation of competition, and that could be an external competition with other people or by yourself, is that you're not showing weakness. You're in a very stoic state. So even though you might be hurting within, you're not showing it outside. Now, David Goggins explains over here that this concept, he understood it, or he developed it when he was in the Navy, and he was in a position that the people that were commanding him to do something during the Hell Week were screaming at him to do this, to do that. And once he realized that anything that they were throwing his way, they were throwing his way a lot more, he was exceeding in such a great way all the challenges that the people that were giving him the things to do were actually getting discouraged. And by him doing that was actually giving him a second wind of energy. So that is the concept of taking souls. You're taking other people's souls by the aspect of, oh my God, this guy's almost superhuman, or whatever the case is. Now that's not necessarily real that he's superhuman, far from it, but it's not showing what you're feeling. It's all within, it's staying stoic. And once again, we could actually do a parallel over here with the philosophy, the Stoic philosophy of being extremely strong physically outside and putting yourself in that position. And another thing that I like about this idea of taking souls, once again, it's not only through an outside competition, it's within as well. If you're doing something, and I'm going to do a parallel working out, and it's extremely difficult, during the workout, if you stop and you put your hands on your knees and you're just breathing heavy like this, maybe your mind is going to start developing an understanding or idea of, wait a minute, this is difficult, so it's going to give you more difficulty. And counterpart, if you're doing that same workout and you're in a position that you're not giving up, your mind is, like we mentioned previously, going to maybe activate your sympathetic nervous system and get some positive energy flowing your way to really get that fight or flight situation opened. So it's a very interesting concept, and I like the way he really framed it of taking souls. The fourth best idea of the book is the cookie jar. Now, I really enjoyed this aspect because it's something that I actually implement in my life as well, and I coach my coaching students on this concept. Now, what the cookie jar is, essentially, it's a figurative jar, and you fill it up with the cookies, and the cookies are all of your successes, all of the things that you have accomplished in your life, all of the great things that people have told you, anything that could really support you. Now, he started thinking this way when he was actually doing one of his 24-hour races, which I think he had to hit 100 miles in 24 hours. At a certain point during the race, he was mentally completely shot. He underestimated the race. And the only way he continued is he started thinking of all the successes, all the things he went through, all the things that he had to go through to become who he became. And when he started thinking about this, once again, he got a lot more energy. That sympathetic nervous system, once again, it's coming up, it came into play. So he coined this as the cookie jar. Now, I said this is something I like because this is actually something that I've been practicing for years as well. I just never called it the cookie jar. I actually call it the brag book. And this is something that I've been utilizing. I've been teaching my coaching clients to do as well. So I have a book literally written down of things that I have succeeded at, or somebody that I admire has seen me do a speech and has come up to me and congratulate me. I just put it in there. And the reason why I have that is when I'm going through a difficult moment or I failed at something, I go back and I read this and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm still the same person that did all of this. So this small little failure doesn't define me. It actually gives you more energy to continue. So that's why I thoroughly love this idea, and I'm going to invite you guys to start creating your own cookie jar or your brag book if you want to write it down on a piece of paper. It's definitely something that could help you out. The fifth best idea of the book is leaving money on the table. Now, if you're in business, you've probably already heard of this term, which is, are you leaving money on the table? Have you closed everything you could close out of this contract or client? Now that's on the business side, but over here, he brings it global on everything. Are you leaving money on the table? On the aspect of, are you living up to your fullest potential? And is that in your workplace, your love life, your family life, in your physical health, in what you're eating, in every single aspect? And I thoroughly love that he brings this into the book, and it's almost at the end, it kind of culminates this whole book together because it really puts you in a question of, wait a minute, am I doing the right things? How many things am I not doing that I don't even know that I'm not doing? And it's unconscious, unfortunately, most of the times, because you're not even aware that you're leaving things on the table. It's completely ignorant to us, right? But if you actually take a step back and really evaluate yourself in every aspect of your life, then you could really sit down and be truthful to yourself and say, am I leaving money on the table? The word of the book. Now, this was a new word for me. The word is bleak, which is cold or raw, like a bleak November evening. So once again, the word bleak. If you guys want to get motivated and inspired, I definitely suggest you guys to pick up this book and read it. It was really interesting, and the way that he presented it in a very storytelling way was really good to read. It was very a smooth read, and during those points there was definitely some elements that you could take out and utilize, just like we mentioned in the best ideas of this book. Now, another thing that I appreciated is after every single chapter, he gave a challenge to the readers. And the challenge put you in a position to really ask yourself some questions that might be difficult and really see, are you leaving money on the table? Are you becoming the best person that you could become? So I really enjoyed that there was that interactive part to it. Now, I didn't only read the book, I was actually listening to the audiobook as well. And one reason why I'm going to invite you guys to do the same is because in the audiobook, he was actually having a conversation with the copywriter. So it was really interesting to see the copywriter giving his opinion and David Goggins behind it. As well, David Goggins added some extra in the audiobook, and it was really interesting to see his passion and his love towards what he's talking about over here. So, if you guys see there's some value here, do not hesitate to like and subscribe. I definitely suggest you guys to pick up this book. The Amazon link will be in the description below. And you guys know what it is. Leaders are readers.